The Kiosk of Mano. On a sunny Sunday morning, after a rainy night in Padua in October, Detective Alberto was in charge to solve the mystery of the murder of Antonio Mano. Antonio's body was found in the car in front of the kiosk. Mrs. Mano was a middle-aged woman. When she was wiping her tears on her cheeks, said,
"Oh, Detective, please find the murderer. Who would want to kill my husband? He was a decent man. He had no enemies. He had a lot of friends."
Antonio Mano was a manager in a bank. He was 45 years old. He and his wife never had children. He had a very good salary. He owned a big kiosk on the bank of the Baciglione River. They had a lot of people who worked in the house. Laura Mano and he had been married for 15 years.
When was the last time you saw your husband, ma'am?
On Saturday morning, he had his breakfast and went to the Eugenian Hills to visit her mom, but he never came back.
Did you have any arguments before he left?
No, we never had arguments. He usually visits her mother on the weekends.
Alberto thought that after he questioned the people who worked in the house, he should go and visit Mr. Mano's mother in the Eugenian Hills. Teresa was a young woman, although she looked older than her age. She was working at the kiosk for about 2 years. She was the maid at the kiosk. She was so nervous when she sat on the chair in front of Alberto.
Have you noticed anything weird with Mr. Nano recently?
Not really, but Antonio Mano was going out at night very often last week.
Why do you think he was going out all at night?
I have no idea, sir.
What about the relationship with his wife? Were they having arguments?
No, sir, they never had arguments.
They had 3 cars. When Mr. Mano was going to work, he was being driven by his driver, Alex. Alex was a very young man. He was also very good looking. He seemed so uncomfortable when he was being questioned. He was working for Mr. Mano for a year.
You have the all car keys, right?
Yes, but Mr. Mano had the same as keys too.
Did you know that he was leaving the house? Did he say anything to you before he left?
No, on Friday I drove him to work and home at 6 o'clock.
What about on Saturday?
On Saturdays I usually don't work. He wants to drive his cars on the weekends.
The gardener was an old man. He was in charge of the beautiful garden and the trees for more than 10 years. He was also the distant relative of Mr. Mano. They were good friends also.
You found Antonio Mano dead in the car and called the police, right?
Yes, sir. He was a good man. He worked a lot, but for about a year he changed a little.
What do you mean with that?
I don't know. He used to chat with me very often, but he stopped sharing things with me. I had known him since his childhood. He was a good man.
After Alberto made a deep investigation around the kiosk, he headed to the Eugenian Hills to talk with his mother. Her house was full of her friends. She was still crying. Alberto asked kindly to have time to answer his questions.
When was the last time did your son come here?
He was here yesterday. He was alive yesterday. Why was he killed? Who might want to kill him? He had no enemies.
Did you notice anything suspicious with him?
He didn't want to stay very long. He said he would stay very short and had to go. He seemed he had an important thing to do, but he didn't say.
Where did he have to go on Saturday? What kind of thing did he have to do? But he wanted to see his mother first before he did his important thing. What could it be? After he investigated the area, he thought that he should head directly to the bank where he worked the next day. On Monday morning, in the bank, there was a very gloomy atmosphere. All the staff was looking so sad. When he was investigating one of the clerks, he found very interesting information.
I have been working at this bank for about 5 years. I think Mr. Mano and Chiara, who is another teller, had an affair.
How do you know that?
I think so, because their relationship was different. When they talked, they always closed the door. When we arrived at his office, when she was there also, they always stopped talking. One day, I noticed that she cried in his office because she had red eyes when she was out. Also, she was always wears lipstick. When she was out, her lipstick was gone. I think something was going on between them for a long time. She looked so tense at work last week. By the way, Chiara is married too.
Chiara was a very beautiful woman. She had 2 children, but her husband was out of a job, so she was feeding her family. Was she really in love with him? It became more complicated to solve this puzzle. She was trembling when she was talking.
How long have you been working at this bank?
For about 1.5 years.
What can you say about Mr. Mano? What kind of boss was he for you?
He was a nice gentleman. He was very kind to us.
Did you have any arguments with him?
No.
Alberto was hungry and he went to the nearby pizzeria near the car park of the bank. He noticed that Mr. Mano's car lot was empty. He could be alive today, but he wasn't. After he finished his pizza, he had a cup of espresso and lit his cigarette. When he was going past the parking lot again, he noticed something so familiar. He called his co-workers to go to an address and investigate. After he finished his second espresso, he got a call, which made him so satisfied because he solved the puzzle. Then, he directly went to the kiosk. He was again sitting next to Laura Mano.
I know you are in love with Alex, but neither you or nor he killed Antonio Mano.
Oh, that too. It was a secret. My husband was working a lot. He never spent his time with me. It wasn't my fault. I was so lonely. Alex made my life very different. I'm so sorry. If Alex didn't kill him, who killed him then?
At first, I thought Alex was the murderer because I found your photo in Alex's room. I thought that he might be the murderer, but he wasn't. Your husband had an affair as well with Chiara Caprosi at the bank.
Oh, really? I didn't know that there was another woman.
No, you didn't, because you were in love with Alex. Antonio Mano knew that. He felt very sorry when he learned that you were in love. Man can understand this.
I'm so sorry. We tried to hide it.
Chiara is a beautiful woman. She's very attractive. She's in lack of love too. Your husband's affair started after you and Alex fell in love each other.
Did she kill him?
No, her husband did. Her husband understood that he had an affair. He doesn't have a job. He's also an alcoholic. They are also in need of money. When he understood that his wife was with her rich boss, he wanted to ask money from him. They used to give him money to shut up. Last time, when you asked money, he asked a very big amount. It was about a week ago. He was going out to find some money. He said it was going to be the last time. Their meeting point was the Eugenian Hills. Your husband went to Eugenian Hills to give the money to Chiara's husband. But he couldn't collect the all money. It was just the half of the amount he could bring.
How did he kill him?
Mr. Mano and Chiara's husband met in the Eugenian Hills near the Allstone mine. Because I investigated the tires of his car, that there were some small stones which are particularly from Eugenian Hills. It was so incredible coincidence that Chiara's tires had the same small stones. But she was at home on Saturday night with her children. We talked with her neighbors. They said she was talking on the telephone too loudly, but they couldn't hear very well. They said that her tone of voice was too anxious.
But he was alive when he drove back home, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
But how did he kill him?
Chiara's husband used to be the guard at the mine. You know, it's a museum right now. There is a variety of stones in the museum. They fired him when he became an alcoholic. He spent his nights by reading about the stones. He learned that some stones can be poisonous when somebody inhales their dust. Kira's husband became furious when Mr. Mano didn't bring the whole amount, but he didn't shout or he didn't have a big fight with him. To take his revenge, he made Mr. Mano inhale some of dust. Therefore, the new guard of the museum didn't hear anything outside the mine. He said that he only heard 2 cars parked in the distance and 2 men talked. Then they left some time later. The poison started to affect him on his way home. He felt worse when he was driving. When he was able to reach the kiosk, he fainted and then he died in his car.
Alberto solved another mystery. It was time he had a nice espresso at the Cafe Pedrotti and enjoyed the last warm days in Padua before the cold winter came.